2 years have passed since our beloved Baron Bird embarked on their maiden adventure. 2 years of peace and quiet have fallen over Spiral Mountain after Gruntilda's defeat. Our heroes spend their time playing cards and relaxing the nights away. What they don't know is a familiar threat is stirring just outside. Banjo and Kazooie have returned for a bigger, badder, but not necessarily better sequel. Y2K had come and gone, and mascot platformers were saturating the market. Donkey Kong 64 had released in 1999 and had been Rare's biggest collectathon yet. Inevitably, this design process would bleed into their later projects. This meant that Rare would be going bigger in their development approach, and thus Banjo-Tooie was released on November 20th, 2000. As a disclaimer, I want to make myself clear before we continue. I love this game. I actually owned Banjo-Tooie as a kid and I put a lot of hours into it, but the years have not been as kind to it compared to its predecessor. So this video will be more critical than my last one. With that out of the way, let's move on. In my video on Banjo-Kazooie, I covered the core gameplay mechanics, character, enemy, sound, and world design. I'll touch on those briefly here, but the reality is that a lot of this stuff carries over from the first game. So my approach will be to cover the key differences rather than repeat myself. Please check out my video on the first game if you're interested. The story has a little more meat on the bone this time. Gruntilda the Witch has been buried under a boulder in Spiral Mountain for 2 years after her defeat at the hands of Banjo and Kazooie, despite the best efforts of her loyal minion Klungo. One windy night while our heroes play cards with Mumbo and Bottles, Grunty's sisters burst through the mountainside with their drilling machine and approach the boulder. Using their witchy magic, they blast the boulder and free Grunty. After being buried so long, she's become a little bony. Being as vain as she is, she wishes to be restored to her glorious former self. Her sisters inform her that this can be done, but only with the help of a life force sucking machine called the Big O Blaster, or BOB. So the plan is to suck all life from the land to revive Grunty. Well, that's a tad more evil and grandiose than kidnapping Banjo's sister. Grunty catches Mumbo spying on them and decides it's time to deal with Banjo once and for all. She chases the shaman back to Banjo's house where she just blasts it. Okay, I guess we're turning up the violence a little. Luckily, Mumbo, Banjo, and Kazooie manage to flee the explosion. I'm not sure where they'd go though. But poor Bottles thinks he's been tricked and stays in the house. This results in the cold-blooded murder of our wise tutor and friend. Bottles gives up the ghost and the adventure begins to stop Grunty from turning the land into the same burnt husk as our mole friend. To drive the knife even deeper, you get to meet Bottles' family later and Banjo has to lie to them that surely he'll be home any moment. Damn, Rare isn't playing around. The hook is much darker than its predecessor and even Banjo comments that he doesn't believe this adventure will be the same. Soon after you get control of Banjo, you'll be meeting a new character, King Jingling, King of the Jinjos. To up the stakes for the plot, Grunty uses the BOB on him to suck his life force out and turn him into a mindless zombie. As if you needed any more reasons to beat her ass again. While there's more of a hook to chew on this time, it feels even less connected to the main gameplay than the last game, if that was possible. In Banjo-Kazooie, there's really no connection in completing the worlds with the goal of getting to Grunty. On a macro level, they exist as locks that you need to open to get to your ultimate goal. But Grunty would chime in now and then in her lair, or sometimes in the worlds, when you would collect a Jiggy. Yeah, she does none of that this time. After King Jingling gets sucked dry, you won't hear from Grunty or her sisters until the end of the game. The only connection to the plot will be her minion Klungo trying to stop you every so often with a boss fight. I know the plot in games like this isn't usually the reason you buy or play it, but I wanted to mention this as it feels like one step forward and 2 steps back. Considering Donkey Kong 64 had more interwoven plot, it's harder to give them a pass. The game feels and controls much like Banjo-Kazooie did with a few changes. I can't really put my finger on it, but the movement feels a little more fluid than the last game. That means you'll be able to execute precise maneuvers easier than you could before. Nothing crazy of course, but you should be able to notice a difference. At its core, the game is still a collectathon, which means you'll be gathering a bunch of junk to progress through the worlds and overworld again. I'll touch on the specific trinkets a little later. Platforming is still key to the gameplay loop of course, but I feel like it's less relevant in this game compared to the last. Challenges and activities focus less on tight maneuvers and rely more on minigames and first-person shooting mechanics. This time, the duo begins their adventure with all the techniques they learned in the previous game right away. This means you'll be moving a little quicker right out of the gate, but the worlds are bigger to match. We'll discuss this in a minute. Unfortunately, you won't be using some of the old techniques very much, as Rare obviously wanted to showcase the new ones more, but they're sprinkled throughout the game at least. Some of the combat techniques have changed slightly, such as the standing attack for Banjo now uses Kazooie's beak instead of his claws, and the combat roll now has a different look with Kazooie using her wings to protect Banjo. It goes a little further too. This game has a whole new set of techniques to learn from Bottles' brother, Jam Jars. Fun fact, this was a name Kazooie used for Bottles in the first game. There are many more techniques to acquire than the last game, but some of them feel like fluff. Rare emphasized a lot of first-person shooter mechanics in this game, and some of the moves you learn simply unlock different versions of this. For example, in the first world, Mayahem Temple, you'll learn first-person egg aiming, which is great, but then you'll learn the airborne version in the third world, Witchyworld, or the underwater version in the fourth world, Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Why separate these into 3 moves at all? It definitely feels like they were running out of ideas to meet their new design approach. To add, you'll learn to use Kazooie like a rifle for certain sections. This feels more like an unlock than an actual move, as you'll only be pulling this out in certain sections of the game. It doesn't help that they added time challenges to these sections as well as made the areas maze-like, and they don't give you any kind of mini-map, which means you are probably going to get lost. Once would be bad enough, but they really overuse these sections throughout the game. I have no shame in telling you that I look up video guides on how to do these parts, as it's just frustrating banging your head against the wall trying to do it on your own and having to restart from the beginning every time you fail. Speaking of shooting mechanics, eggs make a glorious return here with a fresh set of new types to play with. They really knocked this feature out of the park by adding 4 new variants of egg: Fire, Grenade, Ice, and Clockwork Kazooie. Most are self-explanatory in what they are, but the Clockwork Kazooie egg is probably the most unique in that it's a tiny little mechanical Kazooie that you can control for a limited amount of time. This is super useful for its intended purposes, but can even be used for unintended ones as well, potentially allowing you to collect some jiggies before you were supposed to. They're also bombs. All of the eggs see significant use and feel useful for a multitude of scenarios, with the caveat that the standard eggs are basically pointless, especially if you transform Kazooie into dragon form, as this will unlock unlimited fire eggs. One aspect of the core gameplay loop that's a positive is one of the defining features of the game, the split-up pads. These pads allow the duo to separate from each other and go their own way to complete challenges and tasks. This gave Rare a lot of creative freedom to design their worlds. Tying back into the learned techniques, a lot of them will be unique to either bear or bird. For instance, Banjo will learn to use his now empty bag as a weapon or to taxi around other stuff in it. Kazooie will learn to glide without Banjo's extra weight or to hatch eggs. The caveat is there's no way to tell which character the move will be for without asking Jam Jars at his silo, so it can be kind of annoying to have to backtrack to a split-up pad once you figure it out. Mumbo returns with a brand new hut and mechanic to match. Our favorite shaman no longer performs transformations but is a playable character now. Various activities will need his magic to unlock or activate them throughout the world, so you'll be taking control and venturing forth to find his distinct Mumbo pads. He isn't very versatile in his movement, so you'll need to find alternate routes to traverse the environment. His attack is pretty underwhelming as well, so I'd recommend avoiding combat if possible. The idea of playing as a new character is great on paper, but they stumbled in execution. Mumbo controls worse than Banjo and feels like padding for the experience, as you just run to a Mumbo pad, do some chanting, and unlock some arbitrary challenge or task for Banjo to complete later. To boot, you'll have to trek all the way back to his hut to sit in his chair to return to playing as Banjo. Why not simply let you change back when you want? Even though Mumbo is no longer your connect for transformations, the mechanic makes a return along with a new character. Her name is Humba Wumba, and yikes. Transformations are now a little more unique and present on every world. All transformations are new except for the return of the Bumblebee in Cloud Cuckoo Land. You'll notice most of them now have some kind of attack, which is a nice addition compared to the previous game where only the crocodile had one. All in all, I would say they improved on this mechanic, but it would have been nice to be able to cancel the transformation wherever you wanted rather than having to return to Humba's wigwam. Following in DK64's footsteps, they really cranked up the use of minigames in this game. For reference, the previous title had a few sprinkled throughout, like Mr. Vile or the memory matching game in Gobi's Valley, but they usually weren't the main way to earn jigsaw pieces. This game has them on almost every world, and they mostly follow the same point format system of blue equals 3 points, green equals 2 points, and red equals 1 point. For instance, Witchyworld has 4 jiggies unlocked by completing minigames, which is just lazy in my opinion. Minigames are fine if used sporadically, but using them as much as they did felt like they weren't confident in the platforming design. I know I got tired of them quickly. Dying has lost all penalties except for the minor inconvenience of being teleported to the world entry or nearest warp pad, and the live system is no longer present at all. The first game wasn't exactly punishing, but they've completely removed any punishing factors here, which is a little handholdy in my opinion. It's not like the game is super hard in the first place, so it could have been left in, but perhaps that argument can go the other way too. Jigsaw pieces are still your main objective that will allow you to open more worlds as you progress. The number to collect per world remains 10. Instead of finding puzzles in the overworld, there's a centralized hub for you to solve those puzzles to open the worlds. The puzzle mechanic itself has improved a ton here by having you place the pieces in the frame by hand like it's a real puzzle. This is much better than simply pressing one button to fill the picture in my opinion. Notes are still here, but instead of 100 individual notes per world, they come in batches of 5 for a total of 16 note nests and 1 treble clef, which grants 20 notes. The overworld now also contains notes too. They no longer open note doors, but instead are required for learning Jam Jars' moves. If you weren't a fan of the highest note score system on the N64 version of the first game, you'll be pleased to hear that this was fixed for Banjo-Tooie. Even if you don't collect all the notes before leaving the world or dying, the game will save what you've gotten. Handy. Jinjos return in mostly the same manner, with the exception that they now grant the overworld jiggies instead of the witch switches, which have been scrapped. There's still 5 per world to collect, but their colors are random each playthrough, and you'll collect a jiggy for each colored Jinjo family house you reunite. Mumbo tokens are tossed and replaced with Globos. 2 per world are needed, as both Mumbo and Humba will need 1 each. Hollow honeycombs have the same function with different execution. You'll be collecting 3 per world instead of 2, and rather than upgrading your health after collecting 6 automatically, you'll need to visit Honeybee to hand them in. Each health upgrade will cost more than the last, but you'll still be able to upgrade Banjo's health 4 times. A new collectible has emerged: Cheeto Pages. After his betrayal in the last game, Grunty tore Cheeto apart and scattered his pages to the wind. He's sullenly hanging out in the destroyed lobby of her lair, waiting for someone to bring his pages back. Guess who gets to do that? Cheeto will reward you with a cheat for every 5 pages you return to him. These cheats are more worthy of the name this time, as you'll get more than just double resource upgrades. You'll unlock cool stuff like no fall damage and automatically restoring life energy. Neat! There are 3 pages to unlock per world, with 1 in Spiral Mountain, for a total of 25. Stop and swap content is available here to collect, even though Rare couldn't get the feature working properly on the N64 cartridges. Game packs can be found that when destroyed will produce the colorful Easter eggs. If taken to Heggy, she'll hatch them for some cool stuff like a homing eggs cheat, a fun but mostly useless move, and an unlockable character for the game's multiplayer mode. Of course, on the Xbox Live Arcade and Rare Replay versions, you'll be grabbing more content for nuts and bolts. Much of the same British charm and wittiness is kept here. More main characters are present, which is nice, but some of them fall flat and don't add much to the story. For instance, King Jingaling is supposed to be this cool new mentor as King of the Jinjos, but he exists to show the player the new Jinjo rewards and that Grunty isn't messing around by sucking his life force out with the BOB. This means he'll be a mindless zombie from right after you meet him until the end of the game. Sweet addition, guys. Grunty herself is still a formidable final boss, but they took away her rhyming, which was a huge part of what made her charming. As I said before, she hardly has any presence outside of the opening cutscenes, so you'd probably forget you need to fight her by the end of the game if it wasn't for Klungo showing up on her orders every now and then. Her sisters are also hollow newcomers. They help Grunty escape, introduce the Doomsday device, and then never show up again until the trivia quiz at the end of the game. Grunty herself doesn't even care about them either, since she has no problem dropping anvils on them for failing to beat Banjo at the quiz. Jam Jars is a cool addition as a juxtaposition to the lovable goober Bottles. He's his brother, but they couldn't be more different. He has a militaristic caricature, but still feels remorse for his brother's death. Jiggy Wiggy takes on an almost religious figurehead role as the mystic keeper of the Holy Jiggy. Once a world puzzle has been completed, he casts a giant beam of light to open the corresponding world. For the role he plays, I'd say this was a fine addition, but there wasn't anything wrong with finding the puzzles out in the overworld either, so I'll call it a push. Mumbo is mostly the same guy, apart from being competitive with Humba Wumba as the best magic user in the game. Speaking of Humba Wumba, wow. You can tell from her design and name that this game was made in 2000, because you wouldn't see this in a modern title. I'm assuming they weren't going for an offensive representation of First Nations people or women, but I digress. Humba's portrayal aside, she's not much different from Mumbo in the first game, where she'll introduce herself and mechanics, and usually give a little quip about each transformation the first time you use it. The side characters are more plentiful this go around, with a couple of returning characters like Captain Blubber, Tip Tup, and our favorite punching bag, Goby. The premise of the side characters tends to remain the same, where you'll meet them for a few moments and fix their problems for a reward. Some of the new additions fit right in with the British humor and wittiness that they captured from the last game, although they kind of have a Humba Wumba-like stumble on Jolly and Maggie and Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Once again, you can tell this was a game made in the year 2000. I won't elaborate further on that one. The enemies are back in style with more variance and less repetition between worlds, which is refreshing. They managed to keep the momentum going with the enemies that fit the world themes and prop up their environments. You'll notice enemies respawn quite frequently now, but it's not too egregious. Honeycombs will disappear after a little time now, which can suck if you were saving them for later, but once again, the challenge isn't so hard that this is a major factor. The big change for enemy design is the official boss encounters. I lamented the lack of them in the last game, and it seems Rare agreed. Every world now has a boss to fight for a Jiggy. They all follow the rule of fitting their respective world themes, apart from Mingy Jongo and Cloud Cuckoo Land. Not sure what the T2 wearing Mumbo's face has to do with a whimsical Cloud World. Each boss fight is slightly harder than the last, which fits, but none are crazy difficult. Weldar is probably the worst of the bunch, but even he isn't Dark Souls level, so don't worry too much. I'll cover each one in more depth when we talk about the worlds. I don't have much to add from my previous video on this, so I'll keep it short. Grant Kirkhope returns with more magic for your ears. He continued his transition technique in this title, and it's just as great as it was before. The new enemies, bosses, and collectibles have catchy effects to go with them, the worlds all have catchy themes that fit, and all you need to know is the soundscape is in good hands when Kirkhope is involved. Okay, settle in, because this is where the game changes a ton from Banjo-Kazooie. As I mentioned before, Rare took from Donkey Kong 64's design approach for the development on this game. And while they didn't go crazy on the collectibles like Donkey Kong 64, thank God, they really pumped the world design into the stratosphere. You might be sitting there thinking I'm saying they knocked it out of the park, but no, I mean they upsized the worlds threefold. The worlds have way more real estate to run around in, which sounds like a good thing at first, but it's not as great as it sounds. Your movement options haven't changed much as Banjo-Kazooie, so you'll be moving at the same speed you always did, but now it'll take twice as long to get somewhere. Rare did try to account for this by introducing warp pads at choice locations around the worlds, but they didn't cover everything. Feeling slow is never a good experience. They introduced a silo fast travel system for ILO Hags, the overworld, which is very convenient to use, and trust me, you'll be using this a lot. Rare decided that they wanted the worlds and overworld to be connected and interwoven this time. This means that there are a lot of secret entrances and tunnels that will connect one world to another. This can allow you to bypass traveling through the overworld if you want, but honestly, with the fast travel silos being so efficient, you probably won't be finding yourself using these much unless it's required for a Jiggy. Another idea that sounds great on paper, but lacked in execution. A train system gets introduced after Mumbo puts it back on its tracks, and you deal with the boss lurking within in Glitter Gulch Mine. Once more, another cool sounding idea that can help you traverse the worlds without going to the overworld. And once again, you probably won't use this unless you must for an activity or specific progression due to how slow it is with the cutscenes. When we discussed Banjo-Kazooie, I mentioned that every world was a complete experience that could be completed on your first run through it. They weren't very large as a whole, but were segmented very well, allowing you to check areas off like a list. By the time you finished, you'd feel satisfied and ready to move on to the next experience. There was only one instance of backtracking for a Jiggy which you needed to move from a later world. This didn't feel so bad as it was from the very next world in the order, and as it happened just the one time, you probably let it slide. Other instances of backtracking were very minimal, like returning to the Sandcastle and Treasure Trove Cove for Cheeto's upgrades, but that was optional. As a principle, backtracking was used very sparingly. You'll quickly realize that backtracking isn't just present in this game, it's the centerpiece for its design. You will literally not be able to complete a single world on your first run except the last two without backtracking in some form. There are some workarounds to this by using unintended mechanics to cheese the game, but it's not common. I don't want to get too into the weeds on this until we cover each individual world, but let me give you an example on a macro and a micro level. On a macro level, Jolly Roger's Lagoon is the 4th world and requires some of the most backtracking for Jiggies in the game. There are 3 Jiggies you can't collect on your first run through, and one of them requires you to go to the final world to complete a task, then go to the second last world to complete another task before you can get this one. On a micro level, in Witchyworld, there's a minigame arena called the Dodgem Dome. This minigame requires power, so you'll need to get Mumbo to activate it with his magic. You'll then need to run all the way back to his hut to get Banjo again. Time to play! Oh, my bad, you'll need to pay the fee to play it first. That means visiting Humba to turn into the bank van, back to the dome to pay the fee for entry, and then back to Humba's to transform back into Banjo, and then back to the dome again. Jesus Christ. As you can probably tell, I'm not a big fan of this new design. I get wanting to reuse worlds and make them more relevant to the experience than just the first time you run through them, but god damn, what a slog some of these tasks are. I'll try to cover the backtracking instances in each world. Let's get into the specifics. Spiral Mountain is not the happy, fun place we once knew. Banjo's house is demolished, Bottles' corpse is stinking up the place, and the music is reflective of the sad reality you now face. There really isn't much to do here other than see Cheeto in the destroyed lobby of Grunty's lair. You can visit Bottles' old molehills if you need refreshers on Banjo's basic moveset. There's a boulder on Banjo's lawn that when destroyed will release a fish. If you take the fish to the water around the Spiral Mountain, it'll teach you a combined swimming technique which will give you the benefit of speed and precision, which is really nice. You'll also get double air bubbles. You can find a game pack behind the waterfall and in an elevated cage, but you'll need some moves from later in the game to get them. As there's nowhere else to go, head down the newly created Digger Tunnel. This is your first Klungo fight. He's been tasked with stopping the duo from getting any further, which means Grunty knows she didn't kill them in her initial blast. Klungo has 3 versions of his fight, and they are randomized to which one you'll get each encounter. Fight 1. Klungo will drink a red potion and grow to giant size. Honestly, he just becomes a bigger target. Give him a peck and he'll return to normal size. He'll have a protective shield and throw acid potions at you. Just dodge them. After 3 rounds of this, he's had enough. Fight 2. Klungo will drink a green potion and become invisible. You'll only be able to tell where he is by a sound cue and a brief glimpse every now and then. You can hit him right after he goes invisible, which makes this quite easy. After damaging him, the same acid potion sequence plays out. 3 hits will dust him like usual. Fight 3. Klungo will drink a blue potion and many clones will emerge. You'll have to figure out which one is the correct one before you attack, or the acid potion sequence will begin without him taking any damage. The real Klungo will always move last and his nose will be a lighter green than the rest of the clones. Once more, 3 hits will finish him off. Upon defeat, Klungo will run back to Grunty to get beaten for his failures and the way is open. Isle Hags is the new overworld that you'll be adventuring through. It's segmented into 7 sections: Jinjo Village, Wooded Hollow, Plateau, Pine Grove, Clifftop, Wasteland, and Quagmire. This new overworld also has collectibles like notes and Jinjos to get this time. Each area has relevance by hosting 1 or sometimes 2 world entrances in it. Some house other points of interest, such as Wooded Hollow being where Jiggy Wiggy's temple is located, or Honeybee's hive being in Plateau. You guessed it, this means you'll be backtracking through these areas quite frequently. Each area is accessed from the last by acquiring moves from the main worlds. As I mentioned earlier, they brought the fast travel system back, but instead of matching colored cauldrons, we get silos instead. These will conveniently bring you to each of the hubs whenever you need. Very useful in a game that requires this much backtracking. While I don't mind Jiggy Wiggy's temple as a central point for opening the worlds, I kinda liked finding the puzzles out in the world better. It made you explore to find them, which fits in this kind of game. They weren't super hard to find, but still. I do prefer the active puzzle solving mechanic though, so a blend of the two would have been perfect. The Jinjo Village has the colored houses of the Jinjo families that have been scared away by the witch's digger machine. Those evil hags even ran over the Grey Jinjo house, killing them all. King Jingling will explain to you that he'd like his subjects back, and for every house that you reunite completely, they'll give you the family heirloom, which is a Jiggy of course. There are 9 houses to complete, and each one has a different amount of Jinjos to save. It's a spot of sunshine and color in an otherwise drab and dark story, which is refreshing. It's too bad you'll be sending the Jinjos home to a zombified king. Honeybee's hive feels unnecessary as a whole, really. We already had a system for automatically upgrading health, so why force me to come back here to trade them in? They made the trade-ins start off cheap and get more expensive, so I guess they wanted a sense of progression, but honestly, I didn't care for this change. Pine Grove has a wigwam for Humba to transform Kazooie into a green dragon form. You'll need the Mega Globo, which requires the Ice Key to unlock the Ice Vault in Hailfire Peaks. Dragon Kazooie can blow fire from a standing position instead of pecking, and also has unlimited fire eggs for shooting. Pretty cool. You can also find Mumbo in Clifftop, where he'll be used for a Jiggy task. All in all, I would say I prefer Isle of Hags over Grunty's lair from Banjo-Kazooie. It feels open, spacious, and themed just right. The lair had themes for its world entrances and charm, but I don't know, there's just something about the Isle that I really like. Every hub getting its own name and feel rather than just an indoor lobby is a huge plus. I wasn't a fan of not having Grunty trash talk you while traveling through it though. Mayahem Temple is our first stop on this journey to stop Grunty, and it starts us off easy. The world is themed on ancient Mayan and Aztec architecture, which is interesting. The layout of the world has you moving up a mountain with some points of interest along the way, which is reminiscent of Mumbo's mountain. Don't forget to activate the warp pads as you go, traveling will be slow otherwise. Near the top of the mountain, you'll find Mumbo's new hut and be introduced to his new playstyle. Find the Globo and give it to him so he can perform his magic. On this new world, Mumbo will activate a controllable golden Goliath that can break boulders or open giant stone doors with his foot. The golden giant can also wade into a deep bog to collect a Jiggy. With the way open, you'll now be able to learn one of the most helpful moves in the game, the Grip Grab. This allows Banjo to hold onto cliff faces and edges and move along them as well. Kazooie can also peck enemies who try to make you fall. This move is on par with the Talon Trop from the first game, in which you'll be using it a lot. So much so you'll wonder how you got around without it before. Moving on, you'll meet Humba for the first time here to transform into a Stony, provided you have a Globo, which is just a smaller stone version of Banjo. You can charge forward for a little attack, but I wouldn't be using this in combat too much if I could avoid it. This transformation is needed to play in the Stony Kickball Championship to win a Jiggy. Kickball is a weird 4-man version of soccer where you'll need to score on yourself to win. I'm not sure that's how soccer's played, but sure. There's a version where you win with the least points, so it's like they mixed golf in there too. Returning to Bear and Bird, make sure to visit the code room where you'll be inputting your cheat codes. Back outside, you'll want to learn the other moves this world has to offer: egg aiming and first-person shooter mode. Egg aiming is also a very important move, as you'll be doing a lot of precision shooting in this game. There's a Mayan temple at the apex of the world, so it's time to enter and see what's in store for us. Welcome to the first round of first-person shooting. As I mentioned before, you'll use Kazooie as a rifle and your eggs as ammo to shoot enemies. Unfortunately, you can only shoot directly in front of you unless you stop to use the manual aim, which is quite unwieldy. The damn reticle will also snap back to the center if you let go of the analog stick. Anyway, the temple is a maze-like building full of narrow corridors and secret tunnels. You'll need to collect a certain number of green statuettes to unlock the slightly holy chamber for a Jiggy and the really holy chamber for your first boss fight. Targetzan, the despotic dizzy totem god, challenges you to a fight. His body is a rotating totem pole with targets on it that you'll need to shoot. Each segment of his body will also have mouths that will shoot darts at you. After destroying one section of his body, he'll call on help from the warrior cat enemies, but you can just shoot them to progress. You'll notice the further up his body you get, the less targets and more dart shooting mouths there are, which ups the challenge. When his head is all that's left, he will initiate his holy kamikaze dart attack and blow himself up for one final ditch effort. Upon defeat, you'll be rewarded with a Jiggy. As this is the first world, they started off light on the backtracking here. There's only one Jiggy that you can't get that will require the drill bill move from Glitter Gulch Mine, which thankfully is the next world you'll visit. The only other thing is you'll be returning here when entering your cheat codes a couple of times. Howdy partner, welcome to the Gold Rush. Glitter Gulch Mine is an old Western American version of a gold mine. You would think that an underground level would be smaller, but nope. The world is one large cavern that's snake-like in nature with a lot of offshoot caves that you'll likely have a hard time keeping track of. A stream runs through the central cavern, which can be handy for keeping your bearings. At the world entry, you'll be able to find some old friends, the running shoes. It turns out these things turn you into Jesus Christ himself because they'll allow you to run on water. Humba's wigwam is immediately noticeable, and the transformation for this world is a detonator. Fits thematically for this mine. If it wasn't obvious, the detonator is used to blow up explosives around the mine to open doors and cave entrances for Banjo to get through. You'll probably be curious to know what its attack is, but don't bother pressing the button. Rare decided it would be funny to give it self-destruct like it's a Pokemon. Make sure you open the Toxic Cavern to free Canary Mary too. Mary is a weird abomination of humanoid and canary and has literally been used to be the canary in the coal mine. She's just breathing in toxic fumes but is somehow still alive. Once freed, she'll fly off to another part of the mine. Transform back and let's go learn some new moves. Jam Jars will teach you the drill bill here, which is a modified ground pound that has Kazooie drilling objects with her beak. This is a great move for destroying certain boulders. The other move to learn is the Beak Bayonet, which is another move for the first-person shooting activity. You'll need this for the first-person section of this world, which requires you to run around a smaller mine defusing sticks of dynamite within a time limit. Of course, if you shoot them, the whole thing explodes, so you'll need to use the Beak Bayonet. This is another maze where you'll likely be struggling to find these damn things. They have a distinct sound to help you find them, but it doesn't help a damn bit, or at least it didn't for me. Time for Mumbo. He's needed for a lift spell to put a jiggy ore into the crushing shed, and also to lift the chuffing train back onto its track. Enter the train, but don't bother trying to use it yet. Time to challenge the boss of the world. In the boiler of the train, you'll meet Old King Cole. You'll need to defeat him for a jiggy and to gain control of the train. This boss fight is incredibly easy, as Old King Cole just runs around the place aimlessly. You can attack him with a couple of different attacks, but the easiest is to just shoot eggs at him. After a certain amount of damage, his limbs will start falling off, and he'll start quoting Monty Python. The only smidge of challenge here is that the floor will become lava for a short period of time, forcing you to stand on the platforms, and the air will become too hot to breathe, so you'll be on a timer to finish the fight before you run out of oxygen. After his defeat, the train is now functional, but you have nowhere to take it yet as you haven't unlocked any stations. Let's go see what Canary Mary is up to. She's repaired a minecart for a race from one end of the mine to the other. You'll need to spam the A button to pump the handles to make the cart move. Oh lord, I hope there aren't any rubber band mechanics here. Huh, turns out there isn't. The first race is quite easy and won't require much effort to win. She'll give you a jiggy and want a rematch. Sure, why not? This race is a little harder, but still nothing to write home about. Your reward this time is a Cheeto page, and Mary is ready to spread her wings and fly amongst the clouds. How pleasant. Maybe we'll see her again. Technically, this world has 2 jiggies that require backtracking, but the first one can be gotten with minimal cheese to skip it. The power hut is supposed to require the split up pad move from Witchyworld, so one character can keep the lights on while the other does some platforming to access a jiggy. This can be avoided by using fire eggs to light up your path, so don't bother waiting to split up. The other can't be skipped, as you need the springy step shoes from Terrydactyland to jump into a nook behind the waterfall. There's also a Jinjo that you won't be able to access until you traverse through a drainage tunnel from Jolly Roger's Lagoon. If you like dilapidated theme parks, you've come to the right place. This is my favorite world in the game, and I can only surmise that it's because it's the one that feels most like a Banjo-Kazooie world. The world is broken into segments that surround the main set piece of the big tent. Each segment is a different themed area like you'd expect in an amusement park. A Wild West zone, a space zone, and a horror theme zone. The warp pads will cover most of these areas, so it'll be easy to navigate. Rat goons with hammers will be your most common enemy, and the cool thing is that they have different attire to match the area they inhabit. At the world entrance, you'll get to meet Mrs. Boggy, the wife of Boggy the polar bear from the last game. She's brought her kids to this dingy park, and they've all run off. She asks Banjo to wrangle them for her so they can make it home in time for dinner. Sounds easy. You'll also meet Salty Joe and Big Al, who will give you french fries and burgers respectively. Naturally, you can't leave the park with the food. It's time to learn the shining jewel of the game, the split up move. This allows the duo to split up and go their own way to complete tasks. The only problem is both characters haven't learned anything on their own yet, so they feel kind of helpless. Let's fix that a bit. Banjo will learn his first solo move here, the Pack Whack. This gives him the option of swinging his empty backpack as a weapon if he needs to lay the smackdown on some baddies. It has a bit of a wind-up timer, so make sure you time it carefully. It also has a hidden use by allowing Banjo to double jump if he jumps in the middle of an airborne swing, which is useful in a pinch. Kazooie has no solo moves to learn here, which kinda sucks, but don't worry, they didn't forget about her on later worlds. The last move to learn here is the airborne egg aiming technique, which is useful, but as I said earlier in the video, feels like fluff. Kazooie could already aim on the ground, why did we need jam jars to teach us how to do it in the air? Is it that much more complicated? Anyway, you'll need this to beat the boss of the world located in the big tent. Let's go do that. Conga from the last game happens to be blocking your entry and requires tickets to let you in. Fine. There happens to be killer slot machines hanging around the tent that have the tickets you need. Use your new grenade eggs and send them to Mechanical Heaven. Congo will take your tickets and run off while the duo thinks they're attending a circus show. Turns out they're the entertainment when an inflatable thing rises to attack you. Mr. Patch is your newest foe, and you'll need to hit his weak spots, the patches, to cause him to deflate. He sort of follows Old King Cole in that he will just walk across the tent in a straight line while you shoot grenade eggs at him, the main difference being that every now and then he will cough up exploding beach balls at you. The more hits he's taken, the more beach balls. After hitting him in a weak spot once, he will call in help from springy boxing gloves that will emerge from the ground. This forces the duo into the air to defeat Mr. Patch, which is why we needed aerial egg aiming. Kind of creating solutions to problems you made in the first place, but here we are. Destroy all his patches and you've earned yourself another Jiggy. Mumbo and Humba kind of go hand in hand on this world, where Mumbo will be required to power up a chunk of the park, and Humba's transformation, the bank van, will be needed to pay the tolls to enter the rides. It sounds kind of interesting, but really it boils down to busy work in my opinion. The best strategy is to get to Mumbo ASAP, have him power the park up, then head to Humba's to pay all the tolls before you can actually play the world fully. Not the best design choice, guys. The bank van is also a big fumble for me as it has no use beyond payment and a couple of doors that can open with its horn. It has no challenge whatsoever as it's invincible and the enemies you see will actually run away from you, so what was the point of the damn thing other than to check a box? Anyhow, once the park is powered and paid for, you can finally begin your exploration. I really like the different themes and the activities that go with it, like jumping from an extreme height into a little pool or doing a strength-based test. It really fits that old circus carnival vibe. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video, I didn't care for the fact that 4 Jiggies on this world are earned through the playing of minigames. I stand by that statement, but I do admit that while I'm not a huge fan of that choice, it does fit the world theme. An actual circus would have plenty of games to play like ring toss or darts at balloons or shooting targets to play, so perhaps that's more a personal hang-up than a design flaw. You'll get to find your favorite punching bag Gobi here too. He's been imprisoned in a twisted petting zoo and has grown a beard in his old age. This poor guy can't catch a break, so free him. He'll run off to the lava world he talked about in the last game, so of course, you'll see him later. You probably thought I forgot about the Boggy Kids, eh? Unfortunately, I was just saving it for the backtracking section. There are 3 children to find. We found their Christmas presents in Freezeezy Peak last game, if you can remember. They can be found in a subset of locations in the park, but these locations will be chosen randomly each playthrough. The first 2 can be sent back to their mom fairly simply. One will have an attitude, so you'll need to show them some discipline by hitting them. Jesus Christ, Rare. The other will want some french fries, so make sure you have some on you. The last one is a bit chunky and will want a burger. No problem, here you go. Fantastic. Now he can't move. This is where you'll need the taxi pack move from Terrydactyland to finish this Jiggy. It doesn't require a move, but you'll also need to create a path for the UFO box in Glitter Gulch mine to get back to Witchyworld for a Jiggy and a Cheeto page. No game is complete without a water world, and Jolly Roger's Lagoon delivers. When entering the world, it won't seem like much except a small town built around a small lake. There's a couple of things to do here, so let's get to it. The first point of interest is the pawn shop. You'll need to collect golden doubloons hidden around the town to pay for a Jiggy and then a Cheeto page. Kazooie tries to haggle with the owner but gets shot down. You'll need a couple of extra doubloons for Jolly Roger's bar, run by the, flamboyant Jolly. For payment, he'll open the door to the room where you can find jam jars to learn the underwater egg aiming. Jolly also needs your help to find his partner Mary Maggie, who apparently was gobbled up by a sea monster. That lake didn't look very big. There's an Easter egg character here named Captain Blackeye. He was meant to be used in Rare's Project Dream before they pivoted to making Banjo-Kazooie. Cool. Captain Blubber makes his return in the Lagoon, where he bought a jet ski shop with the gold you found for him in Treasure Trove Cove. Unfortunately, business has dried up with that sea monster on the loose, so he'll sell you his last possession for 1 doubloon. This gives you access to the holy running shoes so you can collect a Jinjo at the far side of the lake. Kazooie will learn her first solo move here, the Wing Whack. Now she can defend herself while out and about. By now, you'll have noticed there's more to this lake than meets the eye, and you'll need to explore the rest of the world underwater. We're gonna need some help though, as Banjo's lungs won't last long down there. Mumbo is residing in the town too, and can somehow harness the power of the sun to oxygenize the water. Bit of a reach, but whatever. Mumbo has 0 other uses here, so park his butt. With the water oxygenated, Banjo can now swim deep within the caverns of the lagoon and find the sunken city of Atlantis. I hope you like water exploration because you're going to be doing a lot of it. The underwater section feels a lot like Glitter Gulch Mine, with a central cavern with several smaller offshoot caverns or temples. It can be very easy to get lost in here, so try to keep track of where everything is. You'll need to learn the final move, Talon Torpedo, here so you can send Kazooie out like, well, a torpedo, to open certain doors or break certain boulders. This will cost you red feathers, so use it sparingly. Make sure to use this to help the stranded aliens for a Jiggy and for later on in the game. Humba's Wigwam is down here with your next transformation, the submarine. I think this transformation is really cool and works quite well for getting around the area. It also has an infinite supply of torpedoes to shoot at enemies and sonar, which I'm not even sure what that does. The unfortunate part is that there's only one required task for the submarine, which is of course another minigame. Shoot a bunch of undersea mines to beat a point threshold for a Jiggy. There is another optional use for the submarine, which is to fight the world's boss, Lord Woofakfak. He's a giant anglerfish living in Davy Jones's locker. He operates much the same way that Mr. Patch did, which is that he has weak spots, this time they're boils, that need to be shot with grenade eggs or torpedoes if you go as the submarine. He'll swim back and forth across the locker, occasionally shooting lightning bolts at you. The main difference from Mr. Patch here is that he has a second phase. After destroying all his boils, he will open his eyes and they become the new weak spot. After gouging his eyes out, he'll go belly up and your reward will lay at the bottom of the locker. One other thing I wanted to mention was Rare's obsession with entering giant animals. You'll need to find the sea monster everyone was talking about and knock its teeth out to swim inside it. This is where you'll find Maggie and free her to send her back to Jolly. I mentioned it earlier, but this world has some of the most backtracking in the game. There are 3 Jiggies you won't be able to get on your first play. One requires you to help our old buddy Tip Tup by hatching his child from its egg. Hatch is a move you'll learn for Kazooie from Terrydactyland. The second is on a pillar in the middle of Smuggler's Cavern. The intended way to get this is to learn the leg spring and glide moves for Kazooie, which come from Grunty Industries and Hailfire Peaks respectively. You can cheese it early if you wish by shooting a well-placed Clockwork Kazooie egg, but this can be challenging. The last one is a doozy, as there's some pig kids who'd like to go for a swim in the nearby pool. There are 2 problems with the water, however. It's too dirty and too cold. The dirty problem is easy to fix. Simply enter the faucet and turn off the toxic waste dump in this hidden section of Grunty's Industries. The cold problem is much harder to fix. You'll need to go to Hailfire Peaks and find a pool of boiling hot water. You can try and dump this into their swimming pool, but they'll complain that it's too hot. Fine. The solution is as contrived as you think. Go to Cloud Cuckoo Land, knock George the Ice Cube over the edge to fall into the boiling pool far below to cool it off. Wow. Finally, you'll be able to drain the warm water into the pool for this Herculean Jiggy. The 5th world in our journey is dinosaur and caveman themed. It seems like a cool idea, but god damn is it ever massive and difficult to navigate. That's saying something in a game full of worlds that are too big. The main section is once again a large outdoor area that has a lot of caves to enter to complete tasks. This world is also vertically designed where you'll need to climb up the exterior of the giant central cavern to get to the top. One of the first things you'll need to do is defeat the armored caveman tribe that can't be hurt without the use of your new Clockwork Kazooie eggs, as you must get behind them to their unarmored backsides. Find jam jars to learn the springy step shoes to give you some vertical boosts. Best to climb all the way to the top of the level now so you can unlock a task you'll need to do. At the very top, you'll find the boss for this world, Terry. He's a misguided pterodactyl who thinks you've stolen his children. As he won't listen to reason, you'll need to beat some sense into him. For this fight, Terry will fly around his giant nest, which gives you an opportunity to fire grenade eggs at him. After a short time, he will cough up loogies to attack you while he takes a small break. Gross. Defeat them and he'll return. Not much else to this fight, so mop up quick. After you beat him into submission, he'll come to his senses and apologize for not listening. He'll now ask you to find his lost children still in their eggs spread around the world. Big ask for someone who just tried to kill us, but Banjo and Kazooie are big fans of turning the other cheek. The eggs are now active and can be hatched. Which reminds me, go find jam jars to learn this Kazooie solo move. This allows Kazooie to sit on eggs and, well, hatch them. Not much else to it. You can now free Terry's kids and they'll fly back to him except for the last one, who is a big girl. You now need to find jam jars again to learn Banjo's taxi pack move. This allows him to put other things in his bag as Kazooie is no longer occupying it. Now you can reunite Terry with his last kid and collect your reward. Feel tired yet? I hope not, because there's one hell of a Jiggy to collect here and you're going to be doing a lot of running around. There's a cave with a dinosaur family called the Styracosauruses. The mother needs you to fix or find her 3 children. One is missing, one has gotten himself shrunk, and the other is sick. Alright, let's start with the shrunk one. You'll need Mumbo's help, as his gimmick on this world is to make things bigger. Bring him to the cave to restore the dino kid to his normal size. Not so bad, I guess. Okay, let's go find the lost child. If you can recall, there was one of these dino kids in the petting zoo in Witchyworld. If the cage is open, the kid will run into the passenger car of the train, provided it's at the train station. Bring the train back to Terrydactyland and the kid will run home. Whew, one kid left. Now you need to have Banjo taxi the sick kid to the train, collect Kazooie, take the train to Cliff Top, grab Mumbo, cure the kid's illness, return to Banjo, and bring the train back to Dinoland. If you've played old school RuneScape, this is like the one small favor quest. After all of that, you'll be rewarded with a Jiggy. Even Kazooie tries to negotiate for 2 of them after all of that work. No dice, unfortunately. Humba's transformation is a fitting one. A T-Rex. I was so excited to see this as a kid, but there isn't much to it. The gimmick here is that there's 2 versions of the Rex, one small and one big. You'll need Mumbo to resize the wigwam accordingly. The small T-Rex has to learn to roar from one of the nearby dinosaurs and will use a combination of short and long roars to open a secret door for a Jiggy. The big T-Rex is like the bank van, in which it's immune to all damage. The only use here is to roar near a cave that's being blocked by a caveman to scare him off. Once more, I can't help but feel like this wasn't very fleshed out and was like they needed to check a box on their list. There's 2 Jiggies and a Cheeto page that will require backtracking here. The first is to save the Oogle Boogle tribe from extinction. As they've been cut off from the rest of the world, they will need heat and food to survive. Heat is no issue, as you can do this with fire eggs, but food is another can of worms. If you remember, you can get fries and burgers from Witchyworld, but you can't leave the world with them, at least not through the main entrance. There happens to be a secret connection between Witchyworld and Terrydactyland, however. The only issue is that you'll need the claw climber boots from Grunty Industries to use it. The second Jiggy is to help a dehydrated dinosaur named Dippy. His pool of water has dried up and he'll reward you for some water. Kazooie will claim it isn't going to fall to the sky, but that's exactly where we'll get it from. In Cloud Cuckoo Land, there's a pool of water that has a plug that can be destroyed with the Talon Torpedo, and the water will drain into Dippy's pool. Don't forget the small tunnel that leads to a Cheeto page. If Rusty Bucket Bay has a successor for being the most annoying world in the game, this is it. If you thought Terrydactyland was easy to get lost in, this one is even worse. The world is themed around a giant industrial factory if the name didn't make it clear. The world will test your patience from the moment you enter it because it seems like you can't even go into the factory. As a kid, I wandered around for a long time before realizing that you need to open the train station via a nearby switch. Only then can you take the chuffing train into the world and open the main door that way. This is the only world that does this, by the way. Off to a good start, guys. The factory is comprised of 5 floors, each with different points of interest housed on them. You'll want to find all the warp pads ASAP to make navigating much easier. The gimmick on this world requires you to do a lot of setup before completing all of its challenges. There are batteries scattered throughout the factory and exterior for Banjo to whack and carry to the power panels for certain machines. You'll want to do this first so everything is available for use, kind of like Witchyworld. There's a couple of doors and platforms you'll want to set up as well for the world's transformation later too. After all of the prep, it's time to make some progress. You'll learn the claw climber boots here, which allows the duo to walk up walls in certain places. Banjo will learn the snooze pack, which allows him to slowly regain life by sleeping in his backpack, and finally, Kazooie will learn the leg spring, which allows her to flip jump really high without Banjo's extra weight. A lot of the challenges will be based around large machines, such as the trash compactor. There's not enough time to pass the crushers without taking a hit, but it'll only bring you down to 1 health unit. Another hit will kill you. Banjo can bypass this by taking a hit and recovering with Snooze Pack in a little alcove. Another dreaded first-person shooting section is present here called Clinker's Cavern. This time you'll have to find a bunch of poop amoebas blocking the ventilation system. If you fail to destroy them all in time, the air will turn toxic and you'll need to escape before you suffocate. I'm repeating myself, but this section is just as much of a maze as the last ones were, and you'll most likely struggle to do this without a guide or a lot of trial and error. Hope you aren't tired of minigames because you'll be doing another one here. The Twinklies from Freezy Peak are manufactured here apparently, so you'll need to pack them into their respective alcoves. Your payment for being a hardworking employee is, of course, a Jiggy. Mumbo's magic for this world allows him to EMP some of the electrical gadgets in the factory. You'll need to do this to another crushing machine as well as engage in a timed challenge. You'll need to short out the magnet in the electromagnet room, run back to his hut and get Banjo, go to Humba's wigwam and transform into the washing machine, and finally get to the electromagnet room again to press a large button. I hope you know the layout by now because this one is a doozy if you don't. Speaking of Humba, let's talk about the washing machine. They brought back the gag transformation from the first game. It's about as hard to control as you might expect. It's extremely heavy, so you won't be doing much jumping, and it can sometimes be hard to move around due to inertia. It can't use warp pads either, so you'll have to find alternate routes that you should have unlocked with Banjo first, and you'll need to use the service elevator to get between floors. Its attack is pretty funny as you'll be coughing up underwear to smack the enemies. It doesn't do much damage though. Other than the button in the electromagnet room, the other task for the washing machine is to find 6 rabbit workers in the factory to clean their overalls. That's actually quite fitting for this transformation. I think this is one of the better ones in the game, but it unfortunately gets sandwiched between all the other annoying crap you have to do before using it. The boss on this world is quite possibly the hardest besides Grunty herself. Weldar is of course a giant welding machine. He'll claim that the factory regulations state that no bears can enter the factory, so he'll have to dispose of you. His mobility isn't very good, but he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve to hurt you. Weldar's main attack is to try and suck you up like a vacuum. When this happens, you'll need to fire a grenade egg at him to give him indigestion, but you'll have to make sure you aren't too close or you'll get sucked up instead. After doing this a couple of times, Weldar will electrify the floor into squares and send washers, nuts, and bolts to attack you. He also has a jump attack that telegraphs where he's going to land, so you'll need to dodge this too. Continue firing grenade eggs into his gullet, and all these attacks will begin happening at the same time, which can be challenging. After enough internal explosions, he'll explode, sending his head into a control panel. This is the one boss who doesn't directly give you a Jiggy, but unlocks a path to get one instead. There are 2 Jiggies that require backtracking, with one that has intended backtracking but can be bypassed. The first will require Banjo to learn the Shack Pack move from Hailfire Peaks to protect him from toxic waste as he collects the Jiggy underwater. The second requires Banjo learn the Sack Pack from Cloud Cuckoo Land to bounce over some more toxic waste to get the Jiggy on the far side. The last one is intended for you to learn the glide move from Hailfire Peaks to get over to a high platform with Kazooie, but this can be skipped by doing some creative jumping if you prefer. This must be the lava world Gobi was talking about. The world appears to be a path from the entry to points of interest lodged into a mountainside. You'll be traversing this mountain face from left to right. There's an abandoned camp on your left, wonder whose that is. The biggest eye-catcher is the Colosseum on the right side of the world. There's a neat split-up puzzle along the exterior, but the real prize is inside. Kickball is returned, which means you'll need to unlock a secret path from the Colosseum to Mayahem Temple so you can bring the Stony transformation through. Kickball this time is much harder, so prepare yourself. As before, beat 3 challenges for a Jiggy. After spending some time climbing the mountainside, you'll be targeted by fireballs. What the hell? You'll want to use these to destroy a small structure on the left side of the world. This will reveal a flight pad that you can use to get to the peak. Up here, you'll find the jerk who's been sending meteors your way, Chili Billy. If you couldn't tell, this is the boss for the world. This fire-breathing dragon thinks you're the pizza guy and won't take no for an answer. He sits in his pool of lava, and there's a circular path around the edge that you'll be running on. His first attack is to shoot more fireballs at you, so make sure you dodge them. There are cannons all around the perimeter that you'll need to fire eggs from. As he's a fire dragon, make sure to use ice eggs. The cannons will disappear after you use them 3 times. After taking a cannon shot, he'll start using his tongue to try and taste you, so do a couple of jumps to evade. After enough cannon shots, you've defeated him. Hey, where's my Jiggy? After some more exploration, you'll realize why you didn't get a Jiggy. It turns out there's an ice side to this world, and if there's an ice side, there's probably an ice dragon too. Your assumptions are confirmed when you get to the ice side, as ice balls will begin targeting you. Just like the fire side, you'll need to use them to target a giant yeti's foot to get him to move. Now you can lay the smackdown. At the peak of the ice mountain lays Chili Willy. He also believes you have pizza, so get ready for another fight. This fight is identical to the last one, except it's much faster paced and more challenging. The ice balls will come more frequently, and the tongue attack is much faster. Even so, it's nothing you shouldn't be able to handle. Just remember to use fire eggs this time. Once he's had enough, you will finally get your Jiggy. Side note, the order of these fights isn't locked in, so you can do the ice dragon first if you prefer. With those annoying dragons out of the way, you now have free roam of both sides of the peaks. There's a couple of tasks that will require you to venture between both sides. For instance, you'll meet Boggy again. He's moved from Freezeezy Peak to the ice side of Hailfire Peaks. He's also still a deadbeat. Assuming you've helped his family, they'll be here too. His wife will complain about him not helping with dinner as he's watching his new big screen TV. He'll tell you that he's hungry and could go for a nice juicy fish. This fish can be found on the lava side of the peaks, but you'll need a move for Banjo first. Speaking of, let's go over those. Banjo will learn the Shack Pack here, which allows him to cover himself with his bag, which will protect him from harmful water and make him smaller. Kazooie learns the Glide move, which allows her to use her wings for pseudo-flight anywhere you need. After enabling Boggy's laziness, it's time for more exploration on the ice side. It feels like they made more stuff to be done on this side, to be honest. One standout task is to help the aliens again after you assisted them in Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Firstly, the dad has fallen from the ship and didn't survive. Death really was a theme Rare liked to use this time around. Anyhow, this is where Mumbo comes in. His tasks on this world are to perform life-saving CPR magic that will resuscitate folks. Once the dad has been saved, he'll thank you, but request that you help him find the 3 lost children as well. Okay, we'll need Banjo for that, I guess. Before doing that, however, make sure you resuscitate the explorer nearby as well. Even after doing so, he complains of being cold, so once again, Banjo is needed to fix this. Returning as Baron Bird, make sure to heat up the explorer, who turns out to be the Great Saberman. This is a character from one of Rare's classic titles. He proclaims his camp is the abandoned one on the lava side. Aha! And he would like to return there as he's too old for any more adventures. Have Banjo give this legend a taxi ride over to his camp and claim a Jiggy. Alright, back to the alien kids. The first one just needs help escaping from a hole in the ground with a layer of ice trapping it. A bill drill will free it. The second kid is also trapped in a similar hole, but has expired. Jesus Christ, Rare, even the kids aren't off limits? Return as Mumbo to revive the child. Come back as Kazooie for the last kid who's too cold to move. You'd think a Fire Egg or Dragon Kazooie's Fire Breath would work here, but nope, you have to use the Hatch move on it. Apparently only Kazooie's rear produces enough heat. After all of that, a Jiggy awaits you. Let's go see what Humba has in store for us. The transformation on this world is a snowball. Your attack is a charge that makes it roll faster. The snowball's gimmick is that in true snowball fashion, it gets bigger when you roll it on snow. The size of the ball is directly related to how much health you have. Once again, there isn't much use for this transformation. You'll need to be the largest size to open the train station on the ice side and to activate a rusted button for the oil rig. This is a little tricky as the only way to get there is via a path on the lava side. If you couldn't guess, just being on the lava side will cause the snowball to lose health, which means it gets smaller. You'll have to become the biggest size on the ice side, find the appropriate path, and then speedily zoom through the lava side to the ice side plateau with the button before losing any health. It might take you a few tries. Alright, before we leave, we need to make sure we find Gobi. It turns out he's chilling in the train station on the lava side. Well, he did say he was running off to the lava world. Anyhow, you know you're going to need his water again. Bring the train over to the lava side train station, as it's the only way to access the ice side train station. The only caveat here being that as it's so hot, Old King Cole will tell you that if the boiler isn't cooled down, it'll crack and the train will be inoperable. Gobi, my friend, your time to shine has come again. Force him to spit his water into the train's boiler to cool it off, and it'll finally be time to say goodbye forever to our favorite punching bag. I'm gonna shed a tear. The ice side train station has a Jiggy to collect, so do so. There isn't much backtracking on this level, as it's second to last in the world order. The only real instance is one Jiggy requires you to go back to Terrydactyland, to the Stomping Plains specifically. You should have learned the snooze pack from Grunty Industries by now, because you'll need it. You'll need to take Banjo solo across the plains, but as he's too slow to get to the next footprint without taking a stomp, he needs to snooze in the footprints to regain at least 1 health. Once across, there's a switch that opens a door into the ice side of Hailfire Peaks with a Jiggy. We've reached our final world on this journey. Remember how I said that every world has a theme that makes sense and fits? Well, this one missed the memo. This world feels like the developers took hits of acid and rammed a bunch of random stuff into a blender. The theme of Cuckoo Land is a bunch of set pieces floating amongst the clouds surrounding a giant central cavern. It sounds fine, but the set pieces themselves are wonky. A garbage can, a block of cheese that has toxic air inside, a jelly castle, and the Zubba's hive is here for some reason too. There are random eyeball plants that act as artillery, and 2 Mumbo huts, an anteater called Mr. Fit who wants to compete against you in athletic challenges. How does any of this fit with a floating world? Canary Mary feels like the only sane person here. We'll visit her in a moment, I'm sure it's for another pleasant race. To start, you'll need to find a bunch of seeds that when grown will turn into plants that help you access different platforms across the world. Mumbo will need to do a rain dance to help facilitate this. Speaking of Mumbo, let's go visit him for what'll be the final time. You might be confused as for some reason there's 2 huts, one red and one blue. Interesting. Oh neat, there's even a Jinjo here to collect. Looks like his dialogue is a little different, maybe because it's the last world? Hey, what the hell? Looks like this isn't Mumbo at all, it's the T2 version of him. I guess Rare had just finished watching the Terminator movies and wanted to reference them, but again, what does this have to do with the world theme? Anyhow, you'll need to damage Mingy Jongo, the imposter, with any of your combat techniques. The more damage he takes, the more of his robotic self you'll see. He can be really annoying, as he'll be teleporting around the room to evade your attacks, occasionally stopping to give you a chance. Of course, the more damage he takes, the faster the teleporting will be. Every teleport he does, he'll shoot lightning from his staff that can home in on you, so be careful. After enough damage, he'll explode into pieces and leave behind a Jiggy. Okay, time to visit the actual Mumbo. His goal in Cuckoo Land is to initiate a rainfall to create a rainbow bridge and water the plants. Not much else for him to do here. Rare, of course, saved the best transformation for last, and it's a returning one, the Bumblebee. This little guy operates the same as he did in the last game, but now he has a cool ranged stinger attack as well. You'll need it for killing the eyeball artillery plants and for another visit to the Zubbas. Prove once again that bumblebees are superior to wasps, and return to Humba. One other odd Jiggy to do is to help a safe remember its own combination for a Jiggy. You'll need to find a bunch of switches with the numbers on them and explode clockwork kazooie eggs on them to activate the safe. Do you see what I mean when I say nothing makes sense? The last move to learn in the game is here, the sack pack. This allows Banjo to use his bag like a potato sack and hop around. This protects him from harmful terrain like toxic waste and brambles. You'll need it for one of the Mr. Fit challenges. It's finally time to visit our old friend Canary Mary. As I suspected, she wants to race again. The last 2 were fine, so why not? Wait, what's happening? Mother of God, she's so much faster! Remember when I talked about the engine room and propeller jiggies in my Banjo-Kazooie video and how hard it was? This race makes that look like a cakewalk. We went the entire game without egregious rubber band mechanics, and I'm guessing that's because Rare wanted to save them for one big finale. Canary Mary is lightning on the wind, and you have zero hope of beating her in a conventional race without a turbo controller. This race is so notorious among the community that you can find many Reddit threads and forum posts on strategies to beat it. They range from sliding your nail or a pen across the A button rapidly to emulate a turbo controller, to staying just behind her the whole race until the home stretch to bypass the fast and furious rubber band mechanics. Whichever method you choose, just know that you are a legend if you can complete it. The true sadism here is that after all of the effort you just put in, there's a second race, this time for a Cheeto page. I wouldn't blame you if you had no desire to do this again, the juice doesn't feel worth the squeeze. As this is the last world in the game, there isn't any backtracking to be done here. This is a similar experience to Grunty's Furnace Fun in the last game with a little more added on. For what it's worth, I believe that Cauldron Keep was intended to be a full world, but had to be left on the cutting room floor due to time constraints. You'll need to beat Klungo for the final time, which will finally have him packing his bags and abandoning Grunty. The beatings continued, but morale didn't improve, I guess. Next is another trivia-based game called the Tower of Tragedy, but it's more like a quiz show this go-around. You'll be competing against Minjella and Blabelda to buzz in and answer questions correctly for points. Don't buzz in too fast though, you won't get to hear the whole question. The contestant with the lowest points after a round will be crushed by an anvil. Grunty has no sympathy for losers, even her own sisters who helped her escape that boulder at the beginning of the game. The game will continue even after the sisters are crushed, so I hope you've been paying attention along your journey. Answer enough questions correctly and Grunty will admit defeat. Just as she did in Banjo-Kazooie, she'll run off to the top of the keep, leaving you to watch the credits. You'll restore all the energy that was stolen to revive both King Jingling and Bottles too. The cast starts partying at Bottles' house, but you can't attend because you haven't actually dealt with Grunty yet. One final climb for the final battle. Seeing as her physical body has deteriorated, Grunty opts to fight you in the digger machine from the beginning of the game this time. Its name is the Hag 1, and it has plenty of tricks to end the duo's adventure if you aren't careful. The battle has phases just like the last one, but there's a catch now. Grunty will ask a question before each attack, and if you get it wrong, the attack will be faster than normal. After beating a phase, she'll drop a honeycomb to help you heal up, but honestly, you're probably using the honey bag cheat by now. Let's break down the phases once more. Phase 1. The Hag 1 will sweep lasers across the floor to try and zap you. Make sure to jump to avoid them. Eventually, Grunty will pop out from the hatch and throw magic attacks at you. During this part, the dreaded first-person shooting mode will activate, and this is when you can fire eggs at Grunty. Grenade eggs will do the most damage to her. The more damage you do, the more attacks get cycled in. More lasers will appear, and mortars will get thrown into the mix. Continue dodging and shooting until eventually she realizes she needs to change it up. Phase 2. Grunty activates the drill on the Hag 1 with the intention of impaling Banjo. Avoid this long enough for the digger to stall. This time you'll need to send out Clockwork Kazooie eggs into the rear of the digger to destroy the batteries. There are minions in here, so do some creative dodging. Continue punishing Grunty with eggs and avoiding the attacks. After blowing up the 2 batteries, the digger is out of commission. Phase 3. Grunty will be forced to go on the offensive herself and will continue to huck more magic bolts at you. Minions will be summoned to attack, but you can just shoot them. Once enough damage has been done, she'll release a poison gas to try and suffocate the duo. This doesn't do much except make the area hazy and put a timer on the rest of the fight. When she's on her last legs, she'll desperately begin casting an instant death spell. Shoot her a final time to interrupt her, or you'll be meeting your maker. The battle is finally concluded when the Hag 1 explodes, taking Grunty with it. All that's left of her is her head. It's time to party! Actually, the party's over. You'll be reunited with the main cast and get some congratulations for saving everyone again. A kickball game is suggested, and you know just what to use for the ball. Grunty's head gets kicked around a bit and some jokes get told. A reference to a Banjo-Tooie is mentioned, but of course we never got the luxury. And no, Nuts and Bolts doesn't count. Once more, your adventure has come to an end, and it's time to rest. Wow, this video ended up longer than my last one. I actually thought it would be shorter, but here we are. Thank you once again for sticking with me on this nostalgia trip. I know I was very critical this time, but trust me, if I didn't care, I wouldn't bother. Banjo-Tooie means just as much to me as Banjo-Kazooie does, even if I don't get around to playing it as much. I completely understand trying to find ways to improve on your last project and make it better, but they really overcook some of the features and mechanics. There's a fine line between adding stuff to make it better and adding stuff to meet a quota. You've heard the phrase, wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle? Well, I wouldn't say this game is that bad, but it comes close with some of its bloat. I don't know for sure, but I feel like the higher-ups pushed a similar thread with this game that they did for Donkey Kong 64, which was to just keep adding more stuff. Clearly this title isn't nearly as bad on Collectibles, but they really went overboard with backtracking and world sizes. So much so that the performance of the game takes a hit in a lot of locations on the N64 cartridge. Not on the modern ports though. All of that to say that I love this game and I love the Baron Bird. I begged Rare in my last video for another game and I'm gonna do it again here. Please let us have the true Banjo 3 that you teased. Nuts and Bolts was fine if it had been a spin-off or used a different IP, but it's not what the community wanted. Platforming can still work in the modern era and there's no shortage of fans who want to give you the money for it. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. Again, sincerely, a massive fan.